Hi, my beauties. I have come up with something very important, which is primer, use of primer, whether we should use primer, what kind of primer we should use, how often we should we use on a daily basis. So, it is very important for to use primer whenever you feel the need to. If you feel that you need a primer, if you feel that there is a considerable difference without applying primer and applying primer, then only apply a primer. Don't get forced by any YouTuber, any influencer to buy a primer for yourself, because every skin has its own needs. For example, I am a oily skin type. I need a mattifying primer. A dry skin type may want a hydrating or a oil based primer, but the want and the need of a primer is only when you feel it, that yes, the primer has made a considerable amount of difference in the longevity of the makeup which I have put on it. So don't go in the rage which has been trending on YouTube, on Instagram, to buy a primer for yourself. I would recommend you to buy a primer, buy a cheaper primer, and then see whether it's really working for your skin or not. For example, there are two kinds of primer. First is a gel based, water based. The second one is like this one. It's a silicone based primer. It helps you to smoothen out every kind of texture, pores on your skin. For example, if you have fine lines, it helps to smoothen that part. If you have pores, it helps you to fill in those pores. Now, it's also very important for the people who have cystic acne, who have really bad pimples, to use the primer. You should only use the products which your dermat should recommend. Okay, if you use a silicone based primer, in the worst case, what can happen? It can cause even more breakouts. The intention of us is to use a primer to prevent the breakouts, but hence it can create more breakouts. So it is something which is going to be applied on our skin, okay, on a naked skin just after moisturizer. So it has to be something which you need to put a research on. Okay, so I'm going to be telling you do's and don'ts of primer. So let's get started. The first don't of a primer is to not to apply a primer with any kind of tool, for example brushes or your sponges. Use your primer, take it on your fingertip. It's almost over, so I have to really pressurize it. This is the primer. You have to take it on your fingertip, and you have to only place at those places where you need coverage, where you need the texture to be smoothened out. Okay, so first mistake is to use a primer with a tool. Why? Beauty blender का भी ट्रेंड चला हुआ है. Everybody wants to use a beauty blender on the face, but people tend to underrate the capability of fingers. It's very easy, okay, to use fingers rather than beauty blenders. Okay. Okay, so the second thing, which is second don't of primer, is to okay, so the second very important don't of a primer is people tend to slap on their makeup just the second they have applied primer. No, you need to let the primer sit on your face for at least 5 minutes. For example, if you are dry skin type, the primer will be like seeped into your skin much faster as compared to an oily skin type person. So for oily skin type, for my skin type, I can say that I give it around 3 to 4 minutes to let it sit into my skin, and then only I put foundation over it. Because whenever we are putting a layer on it and we are suddenly put another layer over it. So जिस चीज़ के लिए हम उसे यूज़ कर रहे हैं उसका कोई फ़ायदा नहीं होने वाला, longevity नहीं बढ़ेगी मेकअप की, and it would be added in another factor for the slippage of our makeup. Okay, so that was the second don't. Now the third don't, which is applying primer over the areas where we do not need the use of a primer. For example, generally on the cheeks and on this part of a woman or a man's face, it's almost a very smooth texture. Okay, you do not need to apply primer here. You need to apply primer here, 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 like that. Okay, now when you will apply primer on a smooth surface, for example here and here, your foundation will slip because you have created extra smooth layer. You have almost decreased the friction. Sorry, going into like science class and all, but it really works. You have decreased the friction, you have decreased it to 0, and then your foundation will just slip on after 1 or 2 hours. I myself have felt this. Whenever I am putting foundation over the primer which I have applied here, it just slips automatically. You have to just apply and concentrate the use of a primer only on those areas where you have a different texture. For example, if you have pimples over here, you can apply and go on to applying primer here as well. But if you don't have, don't do it. So these were the three important don'ts which you have to incorporate in. And remember, do not use primer if you don't need it. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope I have created some kind of information for you all ladies. So yeah.